Hiya, and welcome back to Adastra. Uh, hmm. I got nothing. I was gonna say something about like Stockholm syndrome, but let's not. We're just gonna jump right in. And yet, time seems to move faster than ever. This is on top of the fact that 9 months is quite a few more days here on Adastra than it would be on Earth. Still, the days fly by, and I think it mostly has to do with my life not being in peril anymore, and not dreading a trial or fight that will determine my future. Now it's more of a slow burn that just blends together. Life in the palace becomes routine again. I have my own little schedule that involves gardening and watching certain programs on Adastran TV that I've actually grown to tolerate. I start to study, using Com as my teacher to learn as much as I can about Adastran and Galaxia's history. I even have enough time to start learning the language. Apparently they never bothered to name their own language, which is a very Wolven thing to do. But as I'd noticed when I first arrived, it's nearly identical to Latin back on Earth. This makes it fairly easy to pick up considering I studied some Latin back in school, and I learned a good deal of Italian before my trip. Amicus thinks it's a bit odd I want to learn considering I have the lingua. And while I've become used to life in what's basically a dubbed film, I can't help but feel like it's a filter of some kind. I'd like to get past that, hear Amicus and the others as they are. And if I'm going to spend most of my life here, I've already started taking the supplements to extend my lifespan, which means I could be alive for a lot longer than I'd ever imagined. Though Felix says that at most I might get about 100 extra years out of the treatment, rather than the 200 or so years that the wolves would get, because I started taking them when I was already an adult. Still, it's a lot. While I'm sure most people on Earth would be desperate for this supplement, I strangely feel a bit exhausted by the idea. Living 150 to 200 years really changes one's perspective on time. Maybe that's one of the factors that makes it seem as if the days are going by so fast. The worst part about it is that I don't get to spend very much of it with Amicus. It's something I had expected, anticipated even. But I can't help but feel a little depressed that I only see him for a second in the morning when he kisses me goodnight, then late at night to have dinner with me, exhausted by his imperial duties. While Cassius mainly lounged around during his short rule, I also know now that Cato was doing nearly all the work behind the scenes. And while Virginia would be more than happy to do the same, Amicus isn't the type to be lazy like that. Speaking of which, it's not just Amicus. While his absence would be bearable if I at least had someone to talk to that isn't calm, everyone else seems to have become just as busy. Neferu, my only real friend on this moon aside from Amicus, is usually off doing diplomatic stuff in the city. His mission is to secure an alliance now fully in motion. Virginia is always by Amicus's side, especially now that the populace has grown used to the idea of a woman in a chief advisor role. And while I've never really connected with her, it would still be nice to have some kind of company. I mean, even Cassius would be a welcome distraction, but the White Wolf left a few months back to tour the more impoverished regions of Adastra so that resources might be better allocated. And it turns out that he left with my former best Adastrad friend, Alexios. Cassius left us all somewhat stunned when he did this, doing important social work while a known spot and saboteur, one that could be blamed for a lot of damage to Adastran society, is by his side. Adastra was adamant on deporting Alexios on the ship back to Amorpha, but Amicus was adamant on deporting Alexios on the first ship back to Amorpha, but Cassius talked with him and I guess he'd been convincing. Amicus simply set a few extra guards to keep a close eye on Alex. When I'd asked about this, Amicus only told me that the cat is powerless now, unable to connect with his homeworld due to all communication with Amorpha having been blocked after the scandal, one that involved many more actors than just Alex. It doesn't sit right with me, though. The idea that Alex caused so much pain for so many people, yet he's facing no consequences. Sure, I'd made that deal with him to free Amicus, but he really shouldn't still be here. I already know, though, that it has more to do with Cassius's relationship with the cat, and I don't doubt that the White Wolf had compared their situation to ours so that he could better convince Amicus, even if it was incomparable. So now even Alex has something to do, a role to fill, and I'm the one that's left feeling useless and alone in the palace. While I know I'll have a special position once I start my own mission, I'm supposed to keep a low profile until then. The only job I have right now, over the course of the entire 9 months, is to decide whether or not I'm going to play the role the parents want me to. And while that's well and good, as it's a decision that will affect the rest of my life, I also sort of expected to be given more information over the course of my waiting period. But no, infinite space remains quiet, and the monitor isn't even breaking in through my consciousness to give me tips on what to expect. So I'm left pulling the endless weeds in the garden, waiting, wondering, as unsure of my future as I've ever been. Marco. I crack open my eyes, seeing the large silhouette of Amicus in the dimmed lighting of the bedroom. Good morning! I smile and reach out my hands, expecting the usual hug and kiss before he's off for the day. Instead, though, he sits on the bed next to me, running a paw through my hair gently, pushing it back away from my forehead. Your fur is a mess. I mean, I did just wake up. It's cute. Amicus continues to brush his fingers and claws through my hair. I watch him for a moment, a bit confused. You alright? Very much so. I look over at the curtains, seeing the soft light of dawn creeping around the edges. Don't you have to go to the city? Nope. Okay, do you have the day off? You're acting a little odd. So you don't know. Know what? An irrational part of me begins to wonder if the 9 months is already up. Even though the last time I'd calculated it out, I still had 4 months left. I'm honestly glad you don't. I was hoping to surprise you. I close my eyes in only the slightest amount of frustration. Amicus, please just tell me. You know I don't like... I hear rustling from the wolf in front of me, and I open my eyes to the sight of a bouquet of flowers being held out to me. Like last time, it's dominated by lavender and its smell surrounds me, a smell that my brain has exclusively tied to my wolf. Meanwhile, white and pink flowers along the edges complement the purple. I stare at it in surprise, unsure of what to think or say. Amicus fills the silence. Happy Lover's Day, Marco! The wolf continues to hold out the bouquet insistently, so I finally reach up and take it, noticing that it looks much nicer this time versus Amicus's first bouquet. Oh, thank you. You're welcome. I sit there holding the bouquet awkwardly for a few seconds, noticing the stems dripping slightly on the blanket. So I hold them out over the edge. So is this some kind of Adastran holiday? Indeed, to celebrate those who you love and cherish, and for me, that is you, Marco. I love you. Though I'm still feeling a bit dazed at the unexpectedness of it all, I manage a smile. You too, Amicus. I kind of wish I'd known. I didn't get you anything. Amicus waves his paw dismissively in the air. The flowers are simply a human touch that I knew you'd appreciate. Besides, this isn't a gift-giving occasion. It's a go out and enjoy yourself occasion. Amicus stands suddenly, reaching out his paw to me. Come, I have the entire day planned out. Just you and I. No triumvirs, diplomats, or advisors to bother us. I take his paw, smiling as I realize how this has seemingly come just in time for me. I've been feeling so lonely and bored in the palace. This is exactly what I need. I hold the flowers to my chest, smelling them, not caring anymore that they're all wet. What do you have planned? That's also a surprise. I'd like to leave in the next few minutes though, so get dressed and don't worry about showering. Alright. I move toward the dresser and grab my robes, but as I'm doing so, there's a loud knock at the door. Amicus's cheery mood drops for a moment as he lets out a frustrated sigh. Calm, who's at my door? Nefera is at your bedroom door, Amicus. Amicus closes his eyes for a second, then opens them again, smiling at me. One moment, probably just wants to wish us a good Lover's Day. Or something. Amicus strides over to the door while I quickly pull out a clean robe, pulling it over my body as the door opens. Nefera, did you need something? Hello, Amicus, and a hotep be with you, Marco. Nefera pokes his head around Amicus's bulk, which the wolf is clearly trying to use to shield me from view, even though I'm already in the process of tying my robe on. A hotep be with you. I mumble back, nodding in the jackal's direction. What was it you needed? Well, you are needed by the council. The Chemian ambassador and vizier arrived an hour ago, and they requested we begin our meeting at once. What? No! Amicus lets out a groan of frustration, leaning his head back and tilting his muzzle toward the ceiling. Didn't Com notify you? I've been waiting in the carriage for 15 minutes. Virginia's already there. Nefera leans sideways slightly to look at me again. Am I interrupting something? It's Lover's Day. I cleared my schedule weeks in advance for this. Oh, is it? Well, I suppose I would have no reason to know, eh? Nefera winks. Anyway, we know how poorly schedules match up when the stretch drive is used. Simply bad luck. Bad luck indeed. All the while, I feel the slight sinking sensation of disappointment. I can't really say I've been looking forward to this considering I didn't even know it was a thing, but in the couple minutes I knew about it, I was really looking forward to it. Amicus turns then, his gaze softening as he spots me standing in my disheveled, half-tied-on robe. I shrug in what I hope looks like a nonchalant manner. It's alright, I understand. We can do something any other time. Marco, I suppose I'm not doing a very good job of not looking a little upset. I mean, I'm happy with just this. I pick up the bouquet of flowers and sit on the dresser, inhaling the scent again. The fact that you did all this in the first place means a lot to me. Amicus goes on frowning at me, clearly not buying it. Then he snarls, "Fuck."
Derrida.
What the is this?
Watch your profanity.
Right, I'm sorry.
Neferu raises a brow. Poor language for an emperor, Amicus. Amicus ignores the jackal, keeping his eyes on me. This is the only meeting I'll have all day. It shouldn't last too long. And then we'll still be able to do most of what I had planned. I wouldn't plan on that. This is a very important... I know that Neferu, but it won't last all day. Anyway, Marco, come with me. That way, as soon as the meeting is finished, we can immediately go to our private dinner. You're bringing Marco? Didn't you say we should be keeping his profile low? It's Lover's Day. No one will be at the university. I raise my hands. I don't want to cause any problems. I can just wait for you here. You are causing no problems. You will be accompanying me to the city. As my lover, you should be at my side during Lover's Day. Or, if you so choose. At this point, anything sounds better than staying in the palace, so the decision is pretty easy. Alright, yeah, let's go. Amicus looks somewhat relieved, letting out a breath before reaching out to take my hand, walking us out into the hallway while Neferu follows behind. I promise, it will be quick, and I'm sorry, sometimes it's just hard to... Amicus seems to struggle to find his words. I understand, you're the Emperor. Besides, it's not fair for me to be upset because my boyfriend is spending more time on his Emperor duties than me. I would understand if you were. I just hope it won't be like this forever. It won't be. We're simply at a turning point in Adastran history. When you return and when everything settles, we will have much more time to ourselves. My stomach lurches slightly at being reminded that I have my own job to do, one that I'm not looking forward to. I glance back at Neferu, wondering if he should be hearing any of this, but the jackal seems to not be paying attention to anything, his expression distant as his lips move silently. It looks like he's reciting something. I look forward again, leaning against Amicus as we head outside toward the carriage. I already start feeling a lot better as our mechanical carriage creaks through the forest, the peaceful, eerie green calming my irritation I might have felt with the whole situation. Amicus has me pulled against his right side, fitting me in that familiar way as I rest my head against his shoulder. To Amicus's left, Neferu sits with his legs crossed, an elbow on his knee and his chin in his paw. I notice Neferu and Amicus not attempting to make conversation with each other, not even glancing at one another. I mean, it's pretty clear at this point that Amicus and Neferu just don't really mesh well. Their personalities too different. Which I guess is fine, as long as they're not fighting anymore. Neferu seems to have stopped his silent chanting, so I take the opportunity to ask him a question, leaning forward to look around Amicus's front. So, what's going on with this Chemian ambassador and the other thing you mentioned? If you can tell me, that is. The jackal glances at me before shifting into a position that more directly faces me. The vizier? He's the highest official serving under the pharaoh. As for the ambassador, Adastra hasn't had a Chemian ambassador since the war. Amicus grunts. I'll point that Chemia was the first to expel the ambassador. Neferu maintains a straight face. And we are the first to re-establish one. As it should go. Well, that's good. I talk a little louder than usual, trying to stop an argument before it can happen. So are they going to help establish an alliance? Yes, along with smoothing over Adastra-Chemia relations in general. The ambassador will be here for the long term. The vizier... Amicus glances at Neferu, but the jackal simply leans back, looking up the forest again. The vizier will depart to Chemia within a week, which is why negations must begin at once. And you said this is taking place at a university? Yes. There are a few Chemia experts there, and I suppose Chemians find places of learning more comfortable to negotiate in. Amicus glances at Neferu for confirmation. I believe it has more to do with the Adastra Academia being a more friendly entity compared to the political departments, or palace. Amicus smirks. Indeed, the last bastion of chemophiles. Nefaru rolls his eyes before they settle on me again. Oh, and remember our conversation about the other? This university is famous for supposedly being absolutely infested. I raise an eyebrow. So it's haunted? Amicus frowns. Are you serious? Have you been filling his head with the ghost stories of students, Nefaru? I have. Don't worry, I really don't believe it. I lean back against Amicus, deciding that we can't really have a conversation without the two canines butting heads. The university is in a secluded area outside the city, mostly surrounded by forest. More gardens and paths are well taken care of, and it reminds me of a more classical-looking version of the palace. Amicus was right. I don't see a single person on the campus. Our carriage rides up the main path to the largest-looking building that's front and center. We park in front of the building next to a few small aircraft before getting out and heading inside. For a moment, I'm in awe at the size and architecture surrounding me, especially the amount of sculptures spread throughout the halls. Amicus immediately begins talking to me, though. Go ahead and make yourself comfortable. There should be screens in most of the rooms, and down those stairs you can find games of amusement. Amicus! Amicus jerks his head away from me, looking up as Virginia's familiar voice in a very familiar tone echoes around the marble hallways. Gods. Amicus mumbles under his breath as Virginia, her face a mask of fury, approaches. She spares me a glance for a single second before focusing back on Amicus. You are an hour late. Am I? Yes, I've tolerated your tardiness since you were a child, but you've kept the Vizier waiting. How could you? The wolf whisper screams through her teeth, eyes practically bulging from her head. I've never seen Virginia so angry before. Amicus shifts uncomfortably. Well, it's a holiday, so I disabled notification. Are you joking? Emperors do not get holidays. Ever. Well, consider it strategic. What? I'm simply letting him know who holds the power here. It will be an advantageous start to our negotiations. Virginia looks at her brother with borderline disgust. Well, at least you can make even the most extreme stupidity sound not quite so stupid. Hope you're not planning on bringing your maid in. For a moment, I don't realize that she's referring to me. Of course not. He's waiting out here. Virginia looks at me again. My apologies. I hope my brother learns to treat you with more respect in the future. If not, then I'm sure you'll have no trouble finding someone better. What? If you're so worried about wasting time, why are we doing just that? Teacher Veterus is entertaining them on a tour. You'd better think of a good excuse before they return. Actually, just pretend it didn't happen. Oh, that sounds like something you wouldn't want me to do. Chemians are different. I suggest you try not to trick them. Let's go in for now. I think I hear them. Sure enough, I hear echoing voices up the hallways. Amicus turns to me, giving me a quick hug again reassuring me that he won't be long before following Virginia up the hall and disappearing behind a sliding door. Nefaru, who I had completely forgotten about, walks past me, heading for the room as well. I frown, noting the dull look on his face, the one he'd been wearing since the carriage ride. You alright? I ask him just as he passes me. He glances toward me. Of course. Doesn't even make an effort to make it look like that's the case before walking through the door as well. The voices get closer, coming from a bend in the hallway up ahead. Not really wanting to be seen, I move back toward the sculptures, hiding myself amongst them. Technically, all of Adastra City knows who I am, my face having been shown on the giant screens of the city on loop for months. Still, I'm odd enough that I feel like it would just cause more trouble than it would be worth if I'm seen. So I peer around a statue wolf's face, feeling like a stalker as I watch the small crowd approaching the door that Amicus, Virginia, and Nefaru walked through. A very short old wolf leads the way, followed by only the second jackal I've ever seen in person. He's taller and thinner than Nefaru. There's an icy cold expression on his face. I imagine him to be the Vizier, and next to him walks a rather broad-shouldered creature that vaguely looks like a wolverine. His clothing and the paint on his fur is definitely Chemian, so I assume him to be the ambassador. Finally, a younger wolf brings up the rear, one that has longer fur on his neck, which he's styled into a braid. Heard about wolves with manes at some point in my studies, a trait that has been cultivated among Adastra's more influential families, a status symbol of the elite. The braided wolf starts to look in my direction, and that's when I pull back quickly, hiding myself behind the marble and waiting until I hear the door slide shut again. I'm left alone, standing amongst the quiet, spotless marble of the expansive university. At first I sit on a bench, quietly taking in the architecture, thinking about how cool it is if I could come here to study instead. Though now I know that this is the most prestigious university in Adastra, having seen the giant name carved into the face of the building on the way in. Varro's University, or just Varro. Only the smartest young wolves study here along with the wolves from the richest families in Adastra. However, from the handful of times that it came up in Calm's ramblings, it sounded like it was one of the most progressive places on the moon. It was one of the first elite universities to allow women to study inside the school, rather than having to sit in a separate, cheaper building on the outskirts of campus. That was just 50 years ago, finally allowed under the rule of Amicus's father. And eventually, I grow bored with just sitting there and start to walk around, looking at the sculptures and plaques. I give short descriptions of the various wolves the sculptures depict, and I try to piece together what I can with my limited written language knowledge. Notable is the one in the middle, Varro, the university's namesake. He apparently studied the education system on Omorpha before implementing that system on Adastra. This alone shows how different this university is from the rest of Adastra. The wolves, especially the politicians, would never admit to borrowing anything from the cats, even though they borrowed plenty. But even here, there are only sculptures of wolves. No siblings, no children, nothing. It reminds me of one of the biggest issues I've been wrestling with the past few months, how separate I feel from this society. It's to be expected. I'm on an alien world after all. But it's a world of so many different creatures and cultures, yet the wolves seem to be doing their best to ignore that. I realize that I will never be part of this society, even if humans are successfully integrated into the Galaxias. In fact, I already know what the wolven reaction to human society will be. Suspicion, condescension, and overall jealousy at the idea of a race that seemingly uplifted itself, a species assigned a role that's different than all the rest. It doesn't matter that I'm liked by them now. It's only because I'm a seemingly dumb, parentless ape. They will come to despise me just as they despise Chemians. Is it worth it to deal with all that, only to be with Amicus? I know the answer, but I still contemplate. As my thought process spirals, I even think for a moment that maybe Alex had the right idea. But no, thoughts like that always bring me back down. It reminds me that humans, wolves, and all the rest of the Galaxias aren't so different in the end. Which means I have to hope that the parents are different, because I don't think I can trust gods that act like I do. I try to distance myself, walking around the big marble halls, looking into different rooms and reading any inscriptions I can find. The game room in the basement is just a series of tables with various board games that I've never learned to play. After a while, it becomes clear that this isn't going to be a quick meeting. The hours go by slowly. While I would usually be pretty ticked off at Amicus at this point, I'm mostly just sad. Being alone amongst towering marble pillars isn't so different from the palace, and still, this is actually a nice change of pace. I just wish I could be spending more time with Amicus. Eventually, I find a bunch of folded red cloth piled on a table, looking like banners for what could be the school flag, or colors, or something. I grab a couple of these before scouting out a marble bench sitting in the corner of the main room, behind the statues, and out of sight of the door. I lie down on the bench, flat on my back, laying the cloth under my head. I'm tired after being woken up so much earlier than I'm used to, and it's not long before I'm drifting off to sleep. Space stretches and twists into the distance, the infinite dark blue broken here and there with planets, stars, and dust clouds. It's endless, monolithic, passionless, except there. Its mask is clear on the universe, like a stain, a blemish on the glittering patchwork of stars. The planets die, the stars shrivel, the dust scatters. It's all tainted. The mark is old. It's ancient. It existed before life, our life. It touches every life from the youngest sibling to the oldest sibling. It convulses before your eyes in the dark. It whispers in your ear while you sleep. It brushes your neck when you don't see. We all feel it. We all know it. It transcends all. It touches all. It becomes all. I see you. The black tendrils of its reach already infect everything around you. They're going to kill you. You're going to kill him. Your purpose is doomed. And yet, you know that this is only the beginning, that soon it will blanket everything. You will die. He will die, trapped in the amalgamation, forever apart. And that's when I won't hide in the dark anymore. I gasped loudly, sitting up on the bench, feeling like something had been sitting on my chest. I feel like I've been holding my breath, or something had pushed it out. Die. A faint whisper to my left, and when I look, just for the briefest of moments, it seems as if the crouched wolf statue is contorted. Its neck is broken. It's staring straight back at me. I jump, leaning back as I stare at the grotesquely twisted wolf, but it's not twisted. It's like it always was. And then I'm falling off the bench, landing hard on my ass and sending a jolt of pain through my tailbone. Okay, I just realized something, like, that's looking right at us. Like, these two are looking right at us. I can't help the involuntary yelp that comes from my mouth. Marco? Amicus's voice echoes through the halls, making me scramble to my feet, suddenly embarrassed about what had just happened. I clear my throat in a way that sounds casual. I'm over here. I move out from behind the statues, glancing one last time at the crouched wolf, neck in its proper position. It whispers in your ear while you sleep. When my back is to it, the nape of my neck prickles, and I hurry out from my hiding spot. As I move out into the brightly lit main room, I realize that it's already dark. I've been here all day. Where? Amicus' voice seems to come from further away, up the hall. Here! I just want him to come get me. I had a nightmare or something, but I felt so cold, dark, and real. I hear some footsteps padding up the hall, and I turn to see Amicus come around the corner, his paws clasped together. Marco, I am so sorry. They wouldn't agree on anything, and I couldn't excuse myself to come see you because that would make it look as if I cut Amicus off by hugging him, just wanting to feel his presence for now. The depressing thoughts I'd had all day, on top of that awful nightmare, at least what I hope was a nightmare, has left me feeling like complete shit. Were you alright? I'm quiet for a moment, wondering if I should tell Amicus anything about what I was thinking, what I saw, then decide against it, at least for now. I'm just happy to see you. Really? Even after suffering through my complete incompetence all day long? I'm about to scold Amicus for saying that about himself, but then I just end up nodding. Yeah, we all have days like that. Did everyone leave? Yes, the meeting concluded about 10 minutes ago. I had worried you'd left the university for whatever reason. Sorry. Don't be. Are you sleeping? Yeah. Well, that's good, because I'm hoping, even after how poorly the day went, that you might join me for a late-night Lover's Day celebration. He never gives up, and I do love that about him. I smile. That sounds great, Amicus. We walk down the steps from the main building into an empty courtyard of all of the vehicles gone. I frown. They just left us without any transportation? Oh yes, I told them to go on ahead. Oh? Why? Do you not wish to walk? Isn't it a little far to walk? Follow Amicus down the steps and through the university's gardens before we're back in the forest, walking in the direction away from the palace. Not really. The city and the palace are within reasonable walking distance. I walk alongside the wolf, feeling myself relax again as we're surrounded by the quiet forest. Huh. I guess I just assumed it was far since we're always using the carriage. We tend to be lazy. That and it's expected by the citizens as it's seen as more dignified, I suppose. What about security? Shouldn't you have some protections as Emperor? I look around, feeling almost vulnerable out here in the open with Amicus, used to always having the protection of the palace walls around us. Amicus glances up, and I follow his gaze, immediately spotting the blinking lights of drones above us. Drones are far better than an sapient when it comes to security. Amicus looks over at me. I suppose you haven't been outside the palace very often at all, have you? Not really. The wolf grimaces. I apologize for that. I know it seems like you should be more free to travel after what happened, but the people are... Amicus takes a moment to find his words. Very curious about you. It will be difficult to keep them from crowding. I raise an eyebrow as I see lights in the distance, twinkling through the tree branches. But we're heading to the city now. We're heading to the city right now, aren't we? I don't think I can deal with crowds. At least not now, and I'm not really prepared for it. Well, I cleared the district for our arrival, though that was supposed to be, I'd say, 5 hours ago. But still, it's late enough that the streets should be mostly empty. Oh. I draw closer to Amicus. Where are we going? You'll see. There's a sly smile on the wolf's face as we trudge along the path, walking in comfortable silence. Eventually, we break through the trees and into the small, quaint street that I'd been on before. Sure enough, it's completely empty aside from one or two figures moving up the sidewalk or standing in the doorway. I notice then that Amicus is becoming more excited, and it shows in his widening strides, and I have to hurry to keep up. I try to think of where he could possibly be taking me. Amicus? The wolf pauses, waiting for me to catch up, then places his paw against the small of my back, and I'm suddenly thrust forward at his speed, forced along in a stumbling gait. Whoa! Come on, it's right here. Wolf sweeps me under a dark archway. There's a door in front of us, the soft glow of light barely showing through the frosted glass framing the door. It looks like it's closed, and I look up at Amicus in question, but the wolf doesn't seem bothered, and simply knocks on the door. We wait a few moments, then Amicus leans in toward the crack, talking loudly through it. Hello? Gaius? Something beyond the door blots out the light, and Amicus steps back before suddenly drawing me to his side, as if preparing to introduce me to someone. I stand there awkwardly, trying to prepare myself for whatever this is. When the door opens, it's not what I expect at all. It's an old she-wolf in an apron and a cloth tied over the top of her head, peers around the door, cracked open just enough so that her muzzle can fit through. I feel Amicus shift next to me, and he forces his smile even bigger. Hello! The old woman squints. Hello? Amicus is quiet for a moment, clearly taken aback by the other wolf's lack of reaction. He clears his throat. I'm Amicus, your emperor, and this is Marco, my companion. That's a new title. I look up at the wolf in question, but he goes on staring at the she-wolf, who only continues to stare back at him. Maybe you're familiar? No, I don't think so. Amicus stares, his mouth gaping open while the woman starts to close the door. Quickly, Amicus lets go of me to reach out, stopping the door from closing by just an inch. Excuse me, please, but could you summon Gaius? He will know who I am. The old woman sticks her muzzle back through the crack, glaring now. Gaius was relieved of his shift 3 hours ago. You know it's the second hour. I had suspected, though I just hoped he would have waited for me. You thought wrong, dear. Amicus bristles. Excuse me, but you realize you are speaking to your emperor, woman? Now I bristle. Even though I don't know what's going on exactly, I do feel a surge of disappointment at seeing my lover use the "Do you know who I am?" line. Amicus. Try to say it under my breath so the other wolf doesn't hear. What? I'm just trying to... The door starts to close again, and Amicus quickly reaches out, but this time the old woman is ready. She reaches out to smack his paw hard, making Amicus gasp in surprise before the door slams shut. How dare! Amicus looks at a loss for a moment, as if he's never experienced something like this before and doesn't know what to do. Then he tries to open the door, but it's locked. He then resorts to pounding on the door with a heavy fist, lips drawn back to show his teeth. Open the damn door! I was promised a special banquet in the human's honor. Do you hear me, woman? I reach out, pushing a hand against Amicus's chest. Holy shit, Amicus, stop! I hiss at him under my breath, looking around, not having expected to be embarrassed at Amicus's behavior. I'm so used to embarrassing myself. What? Do you hear yourself? What do you mean? I paid for their services and had everything planned. We were 5 hours late! But I'm the emperor, and you are my guest, and that woman... I step closer, cutting Amicus off even as I lower my voice, surprised at the sudden surge of anger I'm feeling. Amicus, you're acting like a spoiled brat right now, just like Cassius, and stop calling her woman! Amicus's indignant behavior seems to deflate a little bit at that. I'm not acting like him at all, and what else should I call her? She is a woman. It's the way you're saying it, and I don't know, maybe ma'am could be a good start? Well, she's certainly not acting like a madam. Is this how you act when you don't get your way? Amicus has always had an entitled streak. I mean, it's kind of what got me in this situation in the first place, but I thought he'd have changed a bit after everything we've been through, especially over something as small as this. Amicus must see the disappointment on my face, because he deflates further, blowing out a big breath that ruffles back my fur and smells vaguely of lavender. No, I don't, I promise. It's just that I had something very special planned, and Amicus looks back at the door, trying to see through the frosted glass, as if whoever he's looking for will magically appear. Amicus, you can't expect anyone to wait 5 hours for you, whether you're emperor or not, I think. Except me, of course. Yeah. I see the moment Amicus gives up on his grand plan, whatever it was, as his deflation completes in a slouch, and suddenly he looks very, very tired. You okay? Yes, I'm fine. Let's Let's just head back to the palace. Maybe we could go someplace else. I wouldn't mind finding a hole in the wall that's open late. But Amicus is already walking back up the road toward the forest, shaking his head. I would rather we reserve the location ahead of time so that I can ensure your safety. It's too late for that tonight. I follow Amicus at a slight distance, feeling generally disappointed and baffled over what had just happened. While I'm still feeling somewhat stunned by Amicus's behavior, I also feel bad because it's clear that he really wanted to make tonight special, and to see him so defeated. I catch up to him and walk alongside the wolf as we pass under the cover of the many branches, our path lit up by the firefly-like insects floating around us. Well, we could do something at the palace, maybe have a picnic. Amicus heaves a heavy sigh. Honestly, Marco, I'm a bit tired, and it's not even Lover's Day anymore anyway. Wolf says the last bit so quietly that I barely catch it. And just like that, my attempts to keep my own mood light give in, and I sour instantly. Well, if your goal is to ruin the rest of the night, then you're doing a damn good job of it. Suddenly, we're having one of our old fights again, the way we would feed off of each other's negativity and spiral into a shared mood of sulk. Usually I'd be the one to start it, but this time I feel like Amicus is the clear culprit. I stare at the ground, frowning even though I feel Amicus's eyes on me. Then it takes me a few moments to realize he's stopped walking. I stop too, then turn around to look back at him. We regard each other for a moment, then Amicus takes a deep breath. I realize that I am acting like a spoiled pup, and I apologize. I do not want this to ruin the rest of the night, even though there is not much left of it. I stand there, not saying anything because it looks like Amicus wants to say more. I promise you, I do not often act in such a way in front of my subjects. I just so desperately wanted for something to go right after everything that happened. Not often. I raise an eyebrow, but smirk at the same time, wanting to show Amicus that I'm willing to lighten up as well. I mean, never really. I'm never used to such words to get my way during all of my emperorship, and it was only because it was for you. I sigh. Well, please don't ever feel the need to act that way on my behalf ever again, especially when you're yelling at an old lady and calling her woman. I still don't see the problem with that. She is a woman. Amicus starts walking again, and I walk alongside him. And like I said, it's the way you were saying it, like it was an insult somehow. I did not mean it that way. Well, I mean, I kind of feel like you did, but I get it. You were raised in the society of... Amicus huffs out a sigh. Yes, I know, but I've been doing a lot to progress the rights of women in this society. Just yesterday, I put into motion legislation that will allow females to request a divorce before court. And they couldn't before? Well, no, the husband had to. Wow. Gods, are you humans going to be like the Chemians, shocked and disgusted by every aspect of our society? I shrug. I mean, some definitely will be. Do you not have your own problems? I laugh. Oh yeah, we do. We definitely do. I'm sure you'll be beyond shocked by some of the things we've done to ourselves. Like... I close my eyes, shaking my head. I'll let the diplomats reveal that to you, but yeah, most places on Earth still have problems when it comes to equality. A lot of problems. Then why do you judge me so harshly? Because I know you can do better, and I know you have the power to create immediate change. Technically, but realistically, I know it's a slow process. But you know, where you found me, Italy, it's doing alright with equality, and a lot of Europe is doing great, so I know Adastra can be better. Things go quiet for a moment. That tangent feeling a little strange, like there's more to it than just gender equality. Amicus senses it too, of course. While I know that the parents, through whatever space wizardry they possess brought us together due to perfect compatibility, sometimes I wonder about their measurements, because in some instances, we do feel worlds apart. I look at Amicus, the statement making me feel a little sad. Yeah, well, I guess we really are. But I love it. I love that about you. You opened my eyes, you surprised me, and I've accepted the fact that you come from a better functioning society. I'm willing to learn. I look down, feeling a little embarrassed. Well, humans have a lot to learn. We're kind of a disaster too. Then let us learn together. Back to what I was saying previously. Marco, we're running out of time, and I need to do something with you. I feel like I missed that tonight. I feel my chest twinge a bit at that. We still have time. I suppose. It's quiet again, and though things aren't fully relaxed again, most of the tension has left the air. After a few more minutes of walking, simply enjoying the cold night air, I clear my throat. So, what was that whole restaurant thing about? Amicus chuckles, kicking a big rock with his big foot paw. The big foot paw, sending it tumbling up the path to clack loudly against the roots of a tree. I had decided to get a head start on human integration in the Galaxias, even though the citizens won't know it. How so? Well, a cultural staple for all species is oftentimes their food. Yeah, I have an idea of where this is going, but I don't know how it's possible. So I've established a human cuisine restaurant. Oh, really? Yes. But, how? Com analyzed and sort of fragment of the data from your Nexus back on Earth. Though not all ingredients are the same, we substituted as best we could and developed food that is, in my opinion, rather authentic. Huh. You know, there's a lot of food from different cultures on Earth, so a lot of different types of food. Oh, I know. I kept it all in Italy, at least for now. Our first item was Neapolitan pizza. Amicus's suddenly heavily accented voice startles me a bit, as it always does. The wolf chewing through the words like he's actually eating it. Wow. So, as you would expect, I wanted you to try all of the items to let us know how we did. Amicus is talking about all of this like the restaurant was his own project, something he's been working on for a long time. I thought it would be a fun distraction for you, but as you know, things did not go as planned.
Self-voicing disabled.
It would have been fun, and I am disappointed that we didn't get to do it together, but the thought alone of what Amicus had planned for me is enough to warm my chest, and I lean against him. Well, thank you anyway, and I mean it. Amicus huffs and slides his arm around my side, rubbing my shoulder vigorously. Well, we'll do it sometime soon. Can't open it without you giving your approval first. Oh, motherfucker. Oh, I didn't know it all depend on me. Of course, the restaurant is named in your honor after all. Oh god, really? Really? I feel myself blushing at the thought of my name on a restaurant. It's embarrassing for some reason, but also incredibly sweet. And I think we should have that picnic. Nothing like a third-hour dinner in the moonlight. You sure? You look pretty tired. I'll live. Amicus lets me go after a moment, and as he does, I slide my hand down against his paw, taking hold of it. We don't hold hands often, mainly because it's something the wolves just don't really do. But nothing about it feels strange or out of place as we walk down the path, hand in paw, with only the glow of the moon and the firebugs to guide us. There's an eerie edge to it all, and while I might have been a little nervous if I were alone, I don't feel any of that with Amicus. It does make me think back, though, of what happened in the university. Amicus? What do you know about the other? Why do you ask about that? I shrug. I don't know, I've had it explained to me a few times, but I still don't really understand it. You don't need to worry about it. I look up at Amicus, glaring. Are you serious? I'm not saying that to exclude you. It is honestly something that you do not need to fret over. It's thousands of years away, something you will never see. I look back down at the ground, frowning. Are you alright? I don't know, doesn't it already sort of have a presence around us? How much has that jackal been telling you? I swear, hey, he's the only one that's been telling me anything about it. What else do I have to go on? Listen, Marco. All that is known for certain is that it exists and that it is a threat. The rest are stories and pseudoscience. Amicus, when I was in the university, I heard voices telling me what might happen to us. What? I take a deep breath, deciding that I trust Amicus enough to tell him this, no matter how crazy it is. When I finish, Amicus is quiet for a moment. So, am I just crazy? No, and I don't doubt you at all. Would you be offended if I offer the idea that it could very well have been a dream? No, it probably was. It just worried me. As it should have. It sounds very frightening. Amicus pulls me against his side again. But I'm very happy you told me, and I hope you'll tell me if you experience anything else. After what we have been through, I think we should be open to all possibilities. Yeah. Just being able to talk to Amicus about it has made me feel better, that Amicus is taking this seriously even though it very likely was a dream. But in the very, very unlikely event that it was the other, then the stories would indicate that it doesn't think on its own and simply works with what it has in your mind. It projects your own worries into your reality, but even then, it can't hurt you in such a weak state, and that's assuming that its remnants really do exist in the first place. Well, I'm glad the palace isn't haunted. Well, having lived there all my life, I can guarantee you that is the case. I've never seen anything unexplainable there. This forest, on the other hand... What? Well, some say a creature called the City Arbor lives within the forest surrounding the city. Oh yeah? Amicus sees my smile. Oh yes, it's actually thought to be a primate of some sort, and climbs and jumps from tree to tree. It's completely black and its face is on the opposite side of its head, so that its red, glowing eyes can stare at you while it clings to the branches. I can tell Amicus is trying to scare me, and even though I do feel a little creeped out, his own presence makes it almost impossible to feel scared. Yeah, and you've seen it? I've heard strange noises and maybe movements in the trees while out hunting before. Yeah, alright. Amicus smirks at me as we continue walking, and even though I know he's teasing me, I still feel that prickle of paranoia on the back of my neck. I distract myself by telling Amicus about our own primate cryptids back on Earth. Despite the bad start to Lover's Day, I find myself happy just being able to have this strange conversation with my wolf. Calm sends our food, mostly leftovers from the dinner that we'd missed, out to us in a floating basket as Amicus prepares a sightseer. We board, and soon enough we're heading out toward the island, one that I haven't been to since I followed Alex there with Neferu. Being so late at night, or rather early in the morning, was refreshing compared to the humid mornings and afternoons. Amicus is clearly enjoying it, his elbows on the railing of our craft, leaning back, head tilted up toward the sky, a slight smile on his face. His fur whips around gently on his face and torso. That single fang that always pokes out under his lip glints softly under the light of the celestial bodies above us. He looks so peaceful, something he deserves more than anything. So I savor the moment, trying to capture this image perfectly in my mind, knowing that not so long from now, I'll want to be able to look back on this whenever I'm out on my own. I bite my lip and blink back the small thread of tears just in time before Amicus's eyes open again. Despite everything seemingly getting in our way, we will have to travel for a few weeks together before you might leave. Oh, for what? For you to tour the moon, and also for us to pick up Cassius from the final city and his destination. It will give you an opportunity to see most of Adastra, so that you better understand the moon. Amicus winks. And it has been decreed by the parents, so there's no getting out of it. Don't I know it? I feel both happiness at the idea of having some guaranteed time with Amicus, also feeling that pang of resentment at the thought of the parents making it happen. Our craft pushes up onto the beach, and Amicus hops up before reaching out a paw to help me down onto the sand, even though he doesn't have to. I bring the blanket while Amicus carries the basket, and we set things out in roughly the same spot we did all those months ago in my first weeks here. Only months. It feels like years. As we set out the food, I do kind of wish we had Neapolitan pizza, as I see the usual bread, cheese, olives, and poultry, along with various vegetables I've never been able to identify. Still, it's good enough, and I'm just happy to lounge next to Amicus while we eat. Again, it's that comfortable silence that I always enjoy with my wolf. Silence that doesn't have to be filled with anything except the sounds of chewing, which mostly come from Amicus. After a while, though, he breaks his silence with something that almost makes me choke on my verdi. So, how do humans get married? You present a ring, correct? I cough loudly for a second while Amicus stares. Are you alright? What do you mean by that? I stare at Amicus, then look around, trying to spot something that might tell me what the wolf is up to. I'm just curious. That's what you said when you asked about dating. Oh yes. Are you suspecting that I might ask for your paw in marriage? Even though Amicus is grinning teasingly, I can tell that he's blushing even under the moonlight. You didn't think asking something like that would make me suspicious? Well, I don't know. It's an interesting topic that has never been brought up. Two males cannot be married anyway, let alone ones from different species. I feel myself calm down a little, not sure how I would have reacted if Amicus had just whipped out a ring then and there. Amicus is still looking at me, expecting an answer. I swallow, then think. I guess you just propose to the person you want to marry. Then you go to the courthouse and sign some papers and it's official, I think. I don't know. I've never been married. And in some places, males can marry other males, right? I narrow my eyes. How would you know that? Again, I've spent some time with your Nexus. It's only fair I do, considering you spent so much of your time learning about Adastra. I'm starting to see why Amicus might have been so busy these past months, starting up his own restaurant and learning human culture. Well, you're right, there are a lot of places on Earth where you can marry the same sex. Amicus looks off into the lake. That does sound rather nice. What about Italy? I glance at Amicus, noting the interest he's been taking in the country he abducted me from. I suppose it's a place for him to look to for inspiration, a vision of what Adastra could be, which makes sense. It's the location of the uplift, of course, but it also has a turbulent history and politics that have always been that have always been raucous and unpredictable. But considering where the country started and where it is now, Amicus wouldn't be wrong to find inspiration there. Again, Amicus is waiting for his answer, and I have to think back to what little I researched about the topic. Sort of. I think civil unions are a thing, which is pretty close to marriage, but not really. I think if you marry someone from an EU country, you can. I realize that Amicus might have no idea what I'm talking about, even though he seems to be listening intently. Anyway, yeah, sort of. Civil unions. Mostly marriage, but not really marriage. I think it'll happen there soon, though. Sounds complicated. Yeah, it gets really complicated. Amicus is still looking out at the lake. You want to swim? I blink. No! The water will be freezing. So? So I don't want to die of hypothermia? Amicus guffaws. You really are a pup. It's not that cold. I roll my eyes, feeling a little whiplash from the sudden change in conversation. Then I yelp in surprise as I feel myself getting swooped up from the ground, easily held up in Amicus's strong paws. Hey! I'll show you. What? I struggle in the wolf's grasp, very much not in the mood to be dunked in freezing cold water. Amicus's strength can't be matched by me, though, and the waves get louder as the wolf walks closer to the water's edge. Amicus, my robe! Realizing that a dip in the lake is inevitable, I start to try and struggle out of my garments, but at that moment, I'm suddenly set back down on my feet. Dazed, I stumble. We're right at the water's edge where the waves are crawling up to the sand just a few inches from my feet. The lake stretches out to my right, dark and expansive, the blackness broken by the shimmers of silver light reflecting off of the rippled water. It takes me a while to finally focus on Amicus. It's because he's kneeling on the beach, reaching up toward me with both paws, and I see what is definitely a ring held between the pads of his fingers. I stare. Amicus clears his throat, his bravado from just a minute ago having quickly faded, replaced by a look he'd once worn when he offered me a bouquet of flowers in the gardens. Will you be my husband? My heart. My big, gay heart. I continue to stare. Amicus stares back, clearly trying to keep a confident look on his face, but after a few more seconds, it fails. I know what I'm doing this time. I was sure to research it. I know what this means. He stubbornly holds up the ring. Now I get a good look at it, and I'm not sure if it's reflecting the sky, but the ring appears to be a dark, dark blue, with just tiny speckles of sparkling stones dotting the rim, just like the stars above. A thin strip of silver wraps all the way around the band, straight down the middle. But you said males can marry each other. I mumble that out stupidly, not sure why it's the first thing that comes to mind. Amicus ducks his head slightly. No, but I am Emperor, and I know that might sound bad after what happened earlier, but I want this, so I will have it. Amicus looks back up at me with a determined expression. That is, if you will have it as well. I'm frozen, and that determined expression melts away once again, as Amicus looks like he's about to panic. 8 years, Marco. That is too long. We need something to bind us together, to always remember, to have something when we reunite. A few more moments of silence. I see Amicus's paws faltering, starting to pull back, and that's what finally gets my stupid brain to force me to move, reaching down to gently touch the ring. Yes, of course. Amicus's ears perk up. Yes? I will marry you, of course. I laugh through the last words, not even sure what I'm doing right now. Yes! Amicus hops to his feet, fist in the air as if he's just won some kind of sports competition. Before I can say anything else, he's crushing the air from my lungs with the force of the hug he pulls me into, pressing his muzzle against my lips. Then, when he pulls back, he adds another kiss, this one a canine-style lick up the side of my face. Ah! I flinch back, surprised by the gesture. It's a juvenile show of affection, something a pup would do, and something Amicus has never done to me before. He looks happier than I've seen him in months. Marco, I'm going to be the best husband there ever was. I love you. He pulls me against his body again, more gently this time, looking into my eyes. Though I know that marriages on Adastra are more pragmatic, it seems that Amicus has, for the most part, educated himself in the more emotional, romantic meaning it holds on Earth. Wolf takes my hand in his much bigger paw, drawing it up between us so that he can slide the ring on. Amicus chuckles as it's clear that it's That's much, much too big. At least twice the width of my finger. I'll have to have it fitted, of course. Sorry, I forgot to silence my phone. I'll have to have it fitted, of course. I simply wanted it to be a complete surprise. Let's do this real quick. It worked. I was worried when you didn't assume the usual position I examined on the images Calm showed me of a human proposal. Position: the male's on one knee and the female does this. Amicus assumes a look of surprise, both paws up to his muzzle. I am laughing as I hold up the ring into the moonlight, examining the tiny speckles of sparkling stone embedded in the dark blue metal. I also thought a stretch ring would be most appropriate. Stretch ring? Amicus reaches out, taking the ring from my fingers to hold it between us. It symbolizes space and the stars, of course, but this. Amicus points a blunt claw at the thin strip of silver running along the middle of the band. This symbolizes connection between those who are long distances apart. Yeah? Yes, some believe that the shape of our universe is spherical, and that it sort of folds in upon itself. Amicus sees my furrowed brows. Think of it like this. If I walk in that direction, Amicus points out across the lake, in a straight line, for many months, eventually, I will end up right back here, next to you. So there is a belief that the universe could hold a similar shape, a sphere that is expanding, and this ring? Amicus spins the ring around, showing me the silver circle. Reminds us that, even if we are moving apart on the stretch drive, we are still moving toward each other in a straight line, which is the fastest way to get somewhere. A touch convoluted, I know, and a somewhat unlikely theory, but it can be a comforting thought. I like to think of it more as being connected by fate. Yes, we will be far apart, but there is an invisible thread connecting us that cannot be broken, and will soon draw us back together. I cut the wolf off as I hug him, pressing my face into his chest, the bittersweet sadness I'd been feeling for many months coming to the surface all at once. Amicus holds me quietly as we stand there on the beach in silence. I'm happy and sad all at once, and I just want to stay here forever. We make our way back to our room, the sky beginning to tighten with the approaching dawn. Along the way, Amicus starts to get handsy, and by the time we're at the door, the wolf practically pushes me inside, attacking my neck with licks. I'm just gonna... Oh, fuck, I went too far. My last full day on Adastra comes just as I thought it would. Too soon. As I sit on the stone bench, breathing in the cool, early morning air, I find myself trying to think back on the last few months, even the last few weeks. It's all a bit blurry. The days continued in the same way, with too much time on my hands while Amicus was kept busy by a rapidly changing empire. I'm just going to keep my phone on in case because I'm not touching something. With this assigned role already in progress, I've mostly been left to wait, and while the wait seemed torturously long, it simultaneously seemed unrealistically quick. It feels like only last week that I was touring the moon with Amicus, visiting the major cities on our way to pick up Cassius. It had been one of the better experiences I had on Adastra, really getting to know how different each part of the moon could be for the first time, despite the basically universal culture. I got to see the breathtaking mountain ranges that surrounded the city of Lux. I rode giant, questionably safe amusement rides and ate all kinds of great good food in the city of Vadrote, basically a giant Las Vegas. And all the while, I got to stay in the luxurious villas owned by the imperial family, spending much of my time taking walks, fishing, and even hunting with Amicus. And then we picked up Cassius and Alex, and the trip ended. That was over 3 months ago. Ever since then, the only thing I've really focused on is my studies. I've learned enough of the language that I can hold stilted conversations with Amicus. He's always enthusiastically telling me that I'm doing an amazing job, even though I know I probably sound like a very young child to him. One with a heavy, clumsy accent. I don't think I've done enough. None of this is going to help me with my mission on Earth. Not since the experience I had with Amicus in the archives where I heard from the monitor, let alone the parents. Instead, they seem to be content to just let me drift around aimlessly like I always have. It's gotten to the point that I even asked Amicus if what happened in the archives actually happened and wasn't all just a dream. And speaking of dreams, I haven't even been given one of those. Not even an all is well from the space dragon. What's most infuriating is that Amicus is in contact with them. Of course, he's asked on my behalf if they have anything to say to me, but nothing. I can only assume it's because they don't want to interfere with the process, even though they're going to have to tell me something. At least direct where to go first. Otherwise, they're probably just going to hospitalize me when I show up talking about space wolves and the impending assimilation with the Galaxias. I feel my insides twist uncomfortably like they have been for the past several months, and especially in the past week. I'd had to leave Amicus's room because I didn't want to keep waking him up with a tossing and turning. That and lying there awake, watching Amicus sleep innocently next to me is just a bit too much for me right now. I know I should be savoring these last moments, but instead, I find myself twisted up in worry. I'm going to be alone. It's something that hasn't really scared me much before I came here, but after being with Amicus for so long, and now with this path ahead of me, I go from hugging myself to twirling the now-fitted ring on my finger. It's been a security blanket of sorts. We had debated on whether or not to marry before I leave, but eventually decided Amicus should lay some legal groundwork first, so as not to cause too much of an uproar. He has 8 years to do it, after all. It will give me something to look forward to when I return. Our entire lives adjusted to fit the schedule laid out by the parents. This is all assuming they're telling the truth, and not for the first time. I wonder if I can really count on them to make sure I return to Adastra. They're controlling everything, and I don't think they would be sending me on a mission that would somehow result in me never coming back here. That's the whole point. I'm uniting two different worlds. I sigh, closing my eyes at the ridiculous weight of that statement. Why the hell did they choose me? I'm a fucking idiot. I open my eyes again as I hear shuffling steps up the path. For a moment, I think it's going to be Amicus, maybe having woken up and found me missing from the bed. That's what I hope to see, even though I know he needs his sleep. I'm under enough stress right now that I'm willing to be selfish. But no. I'm surprised to see Virginia walking along the main path, head down as she manipulates one of those transparent tablets that the officials around here have. As she gets closer, I let out a soft cough so I don't surprise her. She looks up, her pace slowing before she realizes that it's me. I had assumed she would continue on her way, but now she deliberately walks in my direction. Pleasant early morning to you, Marco. Good morning. I must say that I'm a bit surprised to see you outside before Vita has even risen. I shrug. Had trouble sleeping. There's a pause, and Virginia gives me a look, one that I think is sympathetic. I imagine. More silence. Even now, at the very end of my journey on Adastra, I feel the stiff, awkward wall between us. Out of everyone I've met in the palace, I feel I know Virginia the least, and that includes Alex. While her intentions became clear to me, like everyone else's eventually did, I literally know nothing else about her. I try to fill the silence. So what has you up so early? Virginia raises an eyebrow. We have run out of time to negotiate funding for a few smaller provinces up to the north, I'm using the early hours to make time. That doesn't sound fun. It is not meant to be fun. My life is now dedicated to serving the Empire. My concerns do not matter. I sigh. Listen, I'm going to be honest here. You seem less happy than you were before you had this position. Again, my concerns are not important. I'm not saying they are. I'm just wondering why you wanted this position if it's only making your life worse. Virginia gives me a long, hard look. It always seems like our conversations become tense if we talk for more than 3 sentences. I think you are not understanding the concept. My concerns do not matter. I do not matter. What does matter is the work I do. So you just want to run the Empire in a more efficient way or something? Yes, or something. You could just be blunt like the Kemians and tell me. We'd get to the point, and then you wouldn't have to be so angry all the time. The look on Virginia's face has me raising my hands defensively. Alright, sorry. I know whenever I talk I just piss you off, so I'll just stop. What has you so brash this morning? Everything. I put out my hands to either side of myself, as if to indicate the whole situation I'm in. But at least I'm not always, acting like you're just an annoying distraction. Hell, even Cassius acknowledges my presence more than you do. I mean, it's a bit late now, but considering I'm in a relationship with your brother, maybe we should get to know each other when I come back. Virginia regards me for a moment, then takes a deep breath. Marco, I know you are leaving tomorrow, as we all do, but I also know that you will be back. And I will be made to work with you for a very long time, likely the rest of our lives. I frown. How would Virginia know I'll be working with the Empire? Is she supposed to know that? I start to wonder if the parents are talking, just not to me. Virginia answers that question next, though. Amicus told me, as he should have, considering my position. It will help us prepare, at least in secret. I wonder if the parents told him that was okay. I don't want to deviate from their plan at all if it risks my mission. Virginia interrupts my thoughts, though. But I will say this once, and never again, so remember it when you return. I wait expectantly. While young, my brothers and I experienced very different sides of my father. He coddled Amicus, neglected Cassius, and for me, it was a sort of in-between. He paid me very close but strict attention. Unlike my brothers who received lessons in math, science, and combat, I was given lessons in speech, etiquette, but mainly I was subjected to long, cruel sessions of behavioral molding. He altered who I was as a person, something he would never do to his sons. Oh, why? All I understood at the time was that he planned for me to occupy a prestigious position in the Empire. Still, I hated him for it. I felt almost no emotion when a sabotaged ship crashed. Oh. Yes, how odd he would protect himself to be the most egalitarian emperor in our history, yet treat his own daughter like clay that he could shape in any way he wanted. Now I'm really at a loss for words. But following his death and the resulting power struggle, I came to learn why, and the reason was rather simple. If I were needed to be the first female in a position of power, I needed to set an example. Not only that, but I would need to ward off attempts by those in power to undermine me. My mind was already trained for the deceit I would come up against, and it serves me well, even now as officials spread rumors and attempt to discredit me. Amateurish rumors, I'll have you know. Seems they can't think of anything more complex than saying the reason I get so much done is because I'm a whore. But father personally made sure that I understand the most important lesson in this empire. Trust no male. It's what will keep me alive in this role. While I still hate father, I understand him now, which is better than just hate. Through all of this, I can only sit there awkwardly on the bench. Okay, so is that why you treat me the way you do? I'm a male and you can't trust me? Marco, I trust no one. I simply don't have to worry about women because they hold no power. Yet. I tell you this so that you might understand me, as you wished. We will need to be close allies in the future, after all. While I'm sure my upbringing has a little bit to do with my demeanor, the main reason for my shortness with you is simply due to your immaturity and lack of self-control. Amicus is no different. I grimace. Think I'm a bit better than Amicus. Yes, though he is growing into his position well enough, I'm sure you will as well. I'm not sure if that's encouragement or an insult. And thank you for saving my brother. I don't believe I've had the chance to say that yet. I know what I just said, but he is one of the few I can trust to be himself. Then Virginia turns away, walking toward the imperial ship. I really must be off to the city now. I'll be present for your departure tomorrow morning. Goodbye. Bye. I watch Virginia walk off into the dark, still feeling like I don't really know anything about her, even if she did kind of open up to me for the first time. At least she's willing to work with me on how to integrate humanity. I'd been worried about that. The edge of the sky is just turning a lighter blue as I make my way back into the palace. This is usually about the time that Amicus wakes up, so I'm not surprised to hear the shower running when I walk into his room. I'm thinking about going into the bathroom, then think better of it, not wanting to hold up Amicus's morning routine. I have to admit that I'm a little disappointed that he didn't come looking for me first thing. Usually that's something he'd do if he's not sure where I am. For now, I just sit on the bed and wait, gradually growing more tired as the minutes go by, finally feeling like I might be able to get some sleep. Then the door slides open and Amicus steps out, freshly showered and dressed. He smiles brightly when he sees me. "There you are! I was wondering if maybe you'd gone out to get breakfast early." Immediately I'm jarred by Amicus's overly cheerful demeanor, his voice louder than usual. "No, I just needed some air." "Air? Is it too stuffy in here?" "No, it's freezing," as usual. I stand up and hug Amicus, which he enthusiastically accepts. I sink into his furry warmth and feel my eyes sting at the reality of how much time we really have left really sinks in. "Amicus?" My voice is small and sad, and Amicus quickly but gently sets his paws on my shoulders to push me back a step so that he can look me in the eyes. "Hey, I'm going to be back early tonight. As early as possible. Unfortunately, there are a few mandatory meetings involving the Kemians that I must attend." "I know." Amicus had already tried to take the day off, but of course things came up. "And don't worry, I've kept tonight simple. Just dinner between you and I." I can tell that Amicus is putting on a brave face. So I do the same and swallow back the awful feelings that have been threatening to overwhelm me. "Alright, I'll be waiting." "Good, I won't be long, and the sooner I leave, the sooner I return." "Then you better get going." "Right away, Emperor Consort." I grimace at the title I would hold if Amicus made our marriage official. But he plants a kiss on my face anyway before pulling back and smiling at me. "I love you, and tonight we shall be happy." I try to smile back as Amicus takes his leave, disappearing out the door, wondering how I'm going to manage to do that. Hopefully well enough for Amicus's sake. I'm able to nap for a few hours, after which I walk through the halls, though at a much slower pace than usual. I take a good look at everything, remembering. I walk past the meditation room and I pause just before opening the door. I made up with Amicus here after our fight a year ago. This is also where I accidentally got high on the Somni Cassius had been smoking. The main reason I opened the door, though, is because I'm curious if any of that plant is lying around. Maybe try to contact the monitor myself. I don't see any, and remember Cassius's horrible experience gets me to give up pretty fast, not wanting to be tormented by the monitor because I didn't follow their plan correctly. I head out into the gardens like usual, taking in the beauty of the arranged foliage for the last time. I remember my first morning here, with Alex. He'd been so helpful and kind, and I feel some sadness at the idea that I'll probably never see him again. It's dulled a bit as I also remember that he'd only been sizing me up for manipulation, even then. While I feel our friendship had been partially genuine, I know that what he's done is something I can never forgive, even though Cassius was able to. I head back in for a light breakfast, sitting on Amicus's usual bed. I watch the screens as I do, not surprised to see Amicus's face pop up a few times. He is the Emperor after all, but I am a bit surprised to see my own face, and I know immediately they're talking about us, speculating. I tell Calm to turn it off and sit there for a bit, thinking back on what had happened in this room. As always, my eyes are drawn to the dark wine stain on Cassius's bed, something that remained even after a deep cleaning. It hasn't been replaced, likely because Cassius doesn't really live in the palace anymore. Of course, it always brings to mind the moment he drank that poisoned wine. The day we'd all sat there, knowing something was wrong, yet Cassius still trusting Cato enough to never suspect an assassination attempt. Something he would have suspected if Nefario and I had been less cautious about releasing the information on the sabotaged ship. It probably wasn't enough to convict him in a trial, but all would have known. Even now, I'm not sure why I'd handed the wine to him, knowing it would end badly, knowing I should spill it, just like I did my first time serving. Yet I did what I was told, almost like a robot, maybe because I'd been conditioned to do whatever the wolves tell me. I don't blame Cassius for staying away from the palace after what he went through. An assassination attempt resulting in a medically induced coma does things to the mind, according to him. I wonder if that includes forgiving a spy that's partially responsible for dozens of deaths. Feeling slightly nauseous, I send the rest of my food back. I decide not to think about Alex anymore, feeling like the cat had never gotten what he deserved. I need to distract myself until Amicus gets back, so I head for the baths. It's become part of my routine, and the part I always look forward to do the most for a couple of reasons. First, it's just nice to soak, and second, because I see the person I often run into here. He soaks in the pool, head leaning back against the edge, eyes closed. While I may have lost my friendship with Alex, I'd gained a great one with Neferu. Good thing, too, considering he's the only other sapient that's regularly in the palace during the day. I walk over to the benches, beginning to strip off my robe, glancing at the jackal. It's not safe to fall asleep in the bath. Neferu shifts, raising an eyebrow even though he keeps his eyes closed. I appreciate your concern, but I feel that the sensation of water filling my lungs would be sufficient to wake me. And I was not asleep. I was awaiting your arrival. I walk up to the edge of the pool, Neferu turning his head to look back at me, not even glancing at my naked groin. Really? I didn't think you'd be here. Amicus told me he had Chemian meetings to go to. Briefly, I feel a little upset at the idea that Neferu might stay at the palace to see me while Amicus wouldn't. But only briefly. Things are different for the Emperor. Luckily for me, my presence is no longer requested at such meetings. It matters little. I have direct access to the Emperor anyway. I sigh. You should choose your words carefully in front of the Emperor's fiancée. And why must you think I always speak in innuendos? Because you do. I jump into the pool. It's not something I usually do, and I'm reminded why as my entire being burns for a few moments. It's worth it though. As I come up and see that I've accomplished my goal of splashing Neferu, the jackal in the middle of pawing water from his eyes. I must say, you become more like him every day. I move to the bench and sit beside the jackal, my own eyes stinging from the salty spring water, because I'm more willing to shut you up. Yes, crude like the wolves, having to resort to physical methods because they can't use their words properly. I narrow my eyes. Well, talk enough shit, then you're gonna get hit. Humans are the same, and I have a feeling jackals are too. How would you know? I've never raised a paw against anyone on this moon. Probably because you wouldn't stand a chance. Also, I've seen you fight. First with Alex, and remember you accepted a spar with Amicus a few months back? I seem to have forgotten. Well, I haven't. You took off all of your clothes to tease him, and got floored in like a second. He struck me in the stomach when I was not ready, and very hard, mind you. Their combat techniques are as crude as their words. You weren't ready because you were still using your words after the fight had started. Even though the incident had been a little worrying at the time, I find it mostly funny now, and I smirk at the memory. How was that funny? I had to check into the hospital and make sure he didn't rupture anything. It was very dangerous to do such a thing in what was supposed to be a friendly spar. I think it was the first time you went from showboating to making the weirdest noises after you fell on the ground. Amicus probably did take a lot of his built-up frustration in that attack. Unfortunately, it resulted in even more tension between the two of them, which makes things difficult because I like them both. I guess Neferu still talks official business with Amicus. Neferu huffs. Unlike that blow, bringing that up is rather low of you. He's right. My mood is a bit strange today, and just like with Virginia, I find myself being more blunt. I shrug. Well, so is making shitty comments about all wolves. Neferu sighs loudly, seemingly at a loss for words. A rare sight. I start to feel a bit guilty and clear my throat, changing the subject. To the subject I'm not really sure how to explain to the jackal. So, I'm leaving tomorrow. Neferu's eyes light up. So I have heard, which is why I wanted to be sure I could see you today. I'm starting to regret it, considering your mood. I slump against the ledge. I'm sorry, I'm feeling weird today. I'm just overwhelmed with everything that's happening. Well, you'll be returning, won't you? Yeah, just not sure when that might be. Obviously, Amicus wouldn't have told Neferu about our situation. Maybe even if the parents directed him to. I'm guessing it was Virginia who told him I'm leaving. This is a temporary trip, is it not? You are engaged to be married, after all. I shift a little under his intense gaze. Yeah, but I miss my planet. I just need to be home for a while, so it might be a while. Neferu is quiet for a moment. Does a while mean weeks? Months? I look away over the surface of the steaming water. Maybe a bit longer. Years? It's more of a statement rather than a question. Maybe. Well, I must say that I was rather shocked to hear of your sudden plans for departure that you would not tell me earlier. I half-heartedly will the parents to send me a message that I can just tell Neferu everything. Like always, all is silent in space. But now I'm less surprised, considering that it sounds like you yourself did not realize you would be leaving. I just didn't know how to tell you. That or you're hiding something. I look at him. What? Oh, Marco, you're not nearly as subtle as you think. Like I said, you're becoming more like Amicus every day. What do you mean? Well, your sudden interest in galactic affairs, for one, but mostly, it's your mere presence here in the first place. It makes little sense. Oh yeah? I kind of hope that Neferu figures it out on his own, considering that would dodge the issue of me telling anyone. Oh yes, if I were to guess, you are currently being trained by Adastra to assimilate your people with the children of the wolves. I physically recoil at the idea, even though he's incredibly close. What? Hell no! I would never do that to my people, or to any people. Despite Amicus being Emperor, and despite his slow but steady improvements to the wolven children, it's still not a situation I'll put Earth in willingly. Neferu raises his eyebrow again, seemingly convinced by my reaction. We regard each other for a moment, and Neferu blinks first. So you really won't tell me? I didn't say I have a secret to tell, though. You're just assuming. Honestly, I'm a bit hurt that you feel you can't trust me with this information, after all this time. Now I raise an eyebrow. Neferu, you haven't told me anything about your own situation on your planet, along with your family. Well, you've never asked. Because I know it's personal. You dodged the topic whenever I brought it up. It's a very long story, first of all, and second of all, it's a story about me being a selfish, spoiled, foolish brat. Of course I wouldn't want to tell you. But if I tell you, would you tell me? I think, somewhat tempted to make him tell his story, and just lie about mine, but only for a second. I sigh. No, I'll only be able to when I come back. Neferu's impish nature deflates pretty quick. Well, at least you're honest. I suppose I'll trust you that it's rather important and not my place to know. I'll admit that I am still hurt by all this, and that it's not something I admit often. Sorry, I promise you'll understand once I'm back. Again, I wonder if I'm already admitting too much. But years? I can't predict where I'll be in that amount of time. Back on Chemia? Possibly, if all goes well. I'll visit. I'm a citizen, remember? Well, they rarely allow the use of stretch for only visits, but being the Emperor's husband might make that easier. Yeah, I'll convince him. That seems to bring the issue of my sudden departure to a close. We sit there in silence for a long while, then I place a hand on Neferu's knee. It's not something I would have done in the past considering the Jackal's reputation, but nothing about it feels sensual. Instead, I do it out of pure solidarity and friendship. And I always wanted to say thank you, Neferu, for everything. I don't think I'd be alive if you weren't there for me. I know you had your reasons, everyone did, but thank you. It is the duty of all Chemians to protect any sapient fleeing woven violence, whether they be sibling, child, or as you happen to be, abandoned. I'll believe that after I visit Chemia and have a look for myself. I'll be your tour guide. And Neferu, you can still tell me what's going on with your family, if you want. Definitely not. Do you really want to know? The situation is complex, unresolved, and seems to always be changing. I mean, yeah, I'd like to know. It seems really important to you, but it feels a bit unfair that I'd make him tell me his clearly painful story without my own. Again, when I'm back, then we can trade. Deal. Neferu pulls me up, stepping up onto the bench before reaching down to pull me up. Now let's go for a walk before your wolf returns. I'd like our last conversations to be of happier things. I take his paw, letting him pull me up. Then the two of us step out of the pool to towel off and dress. Neferu is easily able to shift the conversation to things that are light and interesting, and it almost makes me forget that I'm leaving. And so, this Wolverine actually believes that the Imperial family would even consider apologizing for the war. Absolutely asinine, if you ask me. Sounds reasonable. What? No, Marco, it is not. We suffered the heaviest casualties. But wasn't it started by the Empire? No, it was started by the Chemian provocation. Haven't you learned the history? Well, yeah, but attacking a planet full of sapient children wasn't the best way to respond. We attacked the Chemian bases with weaponry which happened to be on a planet full of children. They were never fired on directly. So says the Adastrian history books. Why would you assume that? It's not a good argument to just whip out assumptions that these are lies. My father never lied. I'm basing it off of what I've learned from Chemian history as well. I'm not only learning about Adastra, you know. Amicus is quiet, still looking huffy. So I lean over from my side to the couch to touch his shoulder. Listen, I'm not saying your father is a liar. I'm saying that sapiens are, as a whole, are. I know because humans do the exact same thing when we write our history. You should have a bit more pride in your species. How will you lead the humans otherwise? Actually, I think pride is the biggest woven problem. Amicus just goes quiet. I think I hit a sore spot talking about his dad, and although I'm enjoying our usual, somewhat intense banter, I don't have as much energy as usual. Sorry, I shouldn't talk about things I don't understand. Amicus looks at me in surprise. What? No, I want you to be able to talk to me about these things. I might seem upset, but I've already told you I enjoy debating. I wave away Amicus's rush to smooth things over. No, me too. I'm just a little tired today. What I want to talk about is what's about to happen to me. About how I'm starting to lose my courage at the last minute. I don't want to do anything except stay on this couch, but I can tell Amicus doesn't. He came in with the stories of the day right away, as if this isn't our last night together. While it had been easy to pretend with Nefero, it feels much more difficult seeing Amicus put on such an act to, I assume, make me feel better. Amicus, I don't know if I can... Amicus suddenly holds up a paw. Wait, Marco, I know, but please, let's have this night together. I promise you, the situation will become clearer for you. Just give it a little more time. That gives me a pause. It's like Amicus knows something that I don't. And trust me, because we are traveling back to Earth together, we will have plenty of time to discuss whatever you wish. Amicus's eyes start to glisten just slightly as he holds back tears, then clears his throat. But for now, I think it's preposterous that they expect me to apologize. I watch Amicus for a long time, realizing that he might be right. He's in constant contact with the parents, and I've respected the fact that he can't tell me what they say unless given specific permission to do so. And though the feeling is unnerving, there's also some comfort in the idea that maybe something will help me in the last minute, and Amicus seems to know that. On top of that, he knows how hard this is going to be. We both do. But he wants to save the tears for the end, and so do I. So, well, if it's just the Imperial family apologizing, that's actually asking for very little to create an alliance. It's one of many demands, and they simply want to humiliate us, all because Nefero managed to get his balls kicked in. I mean, the Pharaoh's son! You should honestly consider yourself lucky no one else saw you hit him. Hey, he's an easy one to hit. What does he expect, always leaving himself wide open? He deserved it. Both times. I sigh. Be nice, Amicus. But I lean into him, and he finally pulls me into his lap, nuzzling my hair. We talk for a while longer, the two of us trying to stay awake as long as possible. I finally manage to relax a bit, and finally my eyes grow heavy, and Amicus's warm breath puffs steadily against my head. I imagine this moment folding into a pocket of infinity, made to go on forever, our responsibilities gone, the coming trials never to arrive. But time does march on, because without realizing it, I start to fall asleep. You're on the right path. I grasp blindly at the sound of his voice. Help me. I don't know what to do. My feet slide quietly across the rug and marble, leaving Amicus behind on the sofa. Apologize for the extended silence. But why? I don't know what I'm doing. But you do. I walk deliberately in the direction I know to go, my only distraction being the furious twitching of my left eyelid. You needed time to learn about yourself, to learn about the Galaxias, to steel your resolve, and now you are ready to forge ahead. But I'm not. Then... Would you like to glance through the eyes of the parents to see what lies ahead? Yes. How do I even begin? Instructions for the first steps in your assignment will be given upon your arrival back to Earth. But what we want to show you is instead what is possible, what is guaranteed if you follow all of our instructions. He senses my confusion. Instead of telling you, we can show you. My left eyelid flutters, everything starts to fade. Just emotionally prepare yourself. 8 years pass by in a cosmic microsecond. You return to Adastra a changed man. You find Amicus changed as well. What does not change are the feelings between you. The thread connecting you to your wolf never breaks, never wavers, a constant reminder of where you belong. And when you see him again, you will know this. You'll spend the rest of your life with Amicus. A long life. You worry that what ahead is too difficult. Instead, the worst is far, far behind you, and you will only grow more distant with the slow passage of time. You marry Amicus. You travel the Galaxias with him, always by his work, never to be separated again as you continue your work. You see creatures and civilizations that no human before you could have ever dreamed of. You experience much. Some of it is difficult and painful, but most of it is beautiful. You carry these experiences with you for the rest of your life. You see Neferu again, you work with him, and he will become your closest ally. And then you return to Adastra 40 years later, your work complete. But much more time is ahead of you. You make full use of it. You and your wolf change Adastra for the better. Power will shift from the imperial family as Amicus reforms the fabric of Adastrian politics. You and your wolf will have more time with each other, and within 100 years, the imperial family will formally relinquish its hold on the moon. You spend most of your time with Amicus and some of your time alone, but all of it is time well spent. He takes you to the lake, he takes you to the city, and 200 years after you first met Amicus, you both retire to a villa on the countryside. You grow old together. In the last 50 years of your life, you create even more experiences with him, somehow just as exciting as the ones in your youth. You defy all expectations and live nearly 300 years. And when the inevitable happens, you slip through to the next plane easily, ending this life in his arms, the smell of lavender the last sense you experience. And then, only a few decades later, your wolf joins you in the amalgamation. You will mingle there for eternity, reliving the best moments of your life, with your wolf, forever. I come to slowly on the floor, under the archives. My vision is blurry, and I reach up to wipe away tears. Even now, I feel the incredible warmth and happiness that seemed to overflow from my chest as I lived that. What was that? My future? I'm not sure what to think right now, but for the first time in months, I feel completely at peace. This is my future. I need this future. The sights and the feelings were so vivid, so beautiful. I need that life with Amicus. Even though it feels weird as if the parents are stringing me along with the promise of reward, I also felt the feelings of my future self. Fumbling with the statement. I truly believed in what I was doing, or I guess will believe. I had mixed and melded with so many different times that I'm a little confused as to what time I'm in now. It takes me a moment to become used to seeing time like a human again, instead of a parent. When I adjust, my heart leaps in my chest at the thought of so much time ahead. The 8 years are nothing. I lie there for a while longer, catching my breath, then just staring at the starry sky through the opening in the ceiling. Silently, I thank the parents for finally showing me what the point of everything is. With a shaky sigh, I get to my feet, wanting to go back to Amicus's room, wanting to tell him everything, but knowing I can't. I wonder if they let him see it as well. I hope so. I take a deep breath, feeling the cool, fragrant night air against my wet face. I stand there a moment, just happy to be alive. I'm so lost in this euphoria that I barely notice footsteps up the hall, then voices, laughing and talking. I just stand in the doorway, recognizing those voices. Cassius, stop, we need to be quiet. What is that bitch doing here? Alex's voice is a hushed whisper, though I can tell he's trying not to laugh. Oh, unknot your tail, kitten. What will they do? Arrest me? Something is odd about Cassius's voice. It's slurred and tired sounding. I don't even attempt to hide as the two of them stumble into view. Alex clinging to Cassius's neck as the wolf tries to keep his balance. Alex giggles while Cassius playfully nips at him around his face and neck. Stop, you're going to make me laugh. Someone will hear... Alex spots me and pulls away from Cassius, standing stiffly to his side. Cassius, not having seen me yet, tries grabbing at him, but gets his paw slapped. Ouch, not so rough, my joints ache. He stares at Alex even as the cat tries to nod in my direction to tip the wolf off. It takes a minute, but eventually the white wolf gets it. He looks at me, takes a moment to process it, and stiffens up as well. Oh, ape creature. I frown, wondering if he's forgotten my name already. But my focus is mainly on Alex. Hey, Alex. I'm still feeling bizarrely high and confident for my time trip. Hello. This is good. I actually wanted to talk to you before I leave. Oh, about what? Well, first of all, what are you doing here? Cassius steps forward unsteadily, pointing at me, I think. His finger kind of drifts off to the side. What right do you have to question him, human? Alex quickly grabs one of Cassius's arms and tries to pull him back. Cassius, please. You're acting very uppity for someone who is still considered a pet, even if you did win my brother's favor. I lean against the doorway casually, smiling. Oh, I want more than that, but if you really want, I can call Amicus. He should have the proper authority. No! Alex freezes and every inch of his fur bristles out. I wait, not saying anything, but Alex also says nothing, just clinging to Cassius's arm as he stares at me, as if just moving will lead to me making good on my threat. Well, then maybe we can start with what it is you're doing here. Last I heard, you were banished from the palace. Cassius steps forward again, stumbling a bit as he drags Alex along. Enough intimidating my cat. We are here to claim my father's ship, which we will then pilot to a Morpha. Alex stares open-mouthed at Cassius, clearly shocked at how quickly his plans had just been revealed. Cassius! What? Am I saying something wrong? Well, consider it your fault as you wouldn't stop pressing the wine bottle to my mouth. Alexios can only stare back at the wolf, mouth agape before he snaps it closed and turns to me. My master is simply drunk, if that was not already obvious. I am perfectly coherent despite my slightly inebriated state. Coherency isn't the issue, Cass! Alex hisses angrily at the wolf before turning back to me, smoothing his fur down. My master brought me here simply because he wanted to. As his pet, I have no choice but to obey. I see Alexios' paw grip more tightly onto Cassius' arm, warning him. Ouch, what did I say about me being sore? I sigh as I finally recognize that look in Cassius' eyes. So, you're planning to steal the Emperor's ship, which is Amicus' ship now, by the way, just before I was due to leave. Oh, you're leaving? Alex isn't even trying at this point. Man, you're a real piece of shit, you know that? And you're a reckless ape with no consideration for the rest of the galaxy. I blink in surprise, though I'm a little satisfied to see that I've gotten through his shield of indifference. Cassius, who has opened his mouth to butt in again, suddenly pauses, raising an eyebrow at the two of us. Wait a moment. Do you two have some sort of history? You speak in a familiar way to each other. No, Cassius. Only in passing. I remember then that Alex tried to keep our interactions hidden from Cassius, though not the information I'd unwittingly given the cat during our many conversations. I ignore the wolf for the moment, unwilling to let this traitorous feline get the last word in, and you have no consideration for the lives of anyone on this moon. I turn to Cassius. And how do you explain still wanting to get with this cat when he's responsible for most of the terrible things that happened to us last year? To your family? Don't talk to him, Cassius. Let's just leave. No, you're not leaving. Otherwise, I'm calling for Amicus. I look at Alex, who purses his lips tightly before turning my attention back to Cassius. That is none of your concern, but if you must know, then, Cassius, consider how you would feel left in a position in which the intents of your entire society rested upon your shoulders. He had little choice, while also underestimating Cater's brutality. Cassius's words are less slurred now, the topic of conversation seeming to have sobered him up a bit. He did have the choice to accept his assignment, as he put it, and I think he's smart enough to know his actions would destroy countless lives. You must understand, his choice was an illusion, so as to assure the cats, especially the ones giving the command, that they are still grounded by their values. I fully understand this, and so did Amicus when I explained the situation. We both have been left in such positions before. I shake my head. How can you not blame him for the destruction and death of your people? Marco, he is only the stylist. I blame the hand of his government that wielded him like a disposable tool. Alex is tugging on the wolf's arm again, pulling him toward the main exit. Cassius, let's just leave. There's more wine in our apartment. I sigh, realizing that I probably won't ever have my questions about Alex answered, that he'll probably never get what he deserves. It still bothers me that he got off so easily, that Cassius shields him from any sort of comeuppance. Why do you trust him, Cassius? He's a traitor, but here you are, leaving your empire vulnerable by letting him get close to you, the brother of the Emperor. Cassius pouts, putting an arm around Alexios. Because we understood each other, Marco, as you and Amicus somehow understand each other. I've grown tired of the games of politics. I simply want peace with an understanding partner. By running away to a Morpha, last I heard they despise your kind. Actually, we're similar in many ways, one being our shared culture. I try not to roll my eyes at the word shared. And the other being the fact that the cats now oppose the parents. I believe this can result in plenty of common ground. Come on! Alex yanks the wolf, making Cassius yelp before stumbling after the cat. Ooh, son of a whore, Alex. You're lucky I'm drunk, otherwise you could have seriously injured me. I watch the two of them disappear through the exit, part of me wanting to call security and have the cat arrested for trying to hijack Amicus' ship. At the same time, though, I wonder if it'll do us any good, considering what the cat has already gotten away with. Still, I feel like Cassius seemingly wanting to abandon the Empire, while drunk or not, is something Amicus should know about. I decide that I will tell Amicus when we're both on our way back to Earth and he has time to think over what he wants to do about this. As for Alex as a whole, I suppose his motivation and Cassius's willingness to defend him makes a little more sense, but I still don't like any of it. We all have a choice, whether you want to pretend it's an illusion or not. I'm in the process of making my own right now. I head back to our bedroom, suddenly extremely tired as the euphoria begins to wear off. I still feel as if I've lived an entire lifetime in just half an hour. So when I find Amicus in the same position on the couch, I practically fall back into his arms. He shifts when I do, then hugs me tight before falling back to sleep. I wiggle myself deeper into his embrace before doing the same, falling asleep almost instantly. Okay, just mentally prepare yourselves. It only seems like a second passes before I feel myself being moved around. Then I feel Amicus's paw on my head, gently nudging me out of sleep. Hey there, love. It's time to get ready. I stand off to the side watching Amicus load up the ship while checking various gadgets. Virginia and Neferi make small talk, the kind that makes it feel as if I'm not going away for 8 years, that everything is still normal. Then I have to remind myself that this technically isn't normal, even though it feels that way now. Finally, Amicus walks up to us, brushing his paws together. Well, it's time we're off. I should be back in no more than 2 days' time, Virginia. I certainly hope that to be the case, considering how much work will pile up. I'll try and keep the Empire from rebelling while you're gone, though. Thank you, Virginia. And I look forward to our next reunion, Marco. Hope your experiences contribute to a more disciplined character. Thanks? Of course. Virginia sticks out a paw, and I blink at it until realizing what she's doing. The way I first greeted her. I bend to kiss it. Goodbye, Marco. I step back awkwardly. Bye. Then Neferi's paw sticks out, and I hear Amicus sigh loudly next to me. I don't humor the jackal, though, instead just forcing it into an awkward handshake. That's a new one. Another human greeting. I'll have to show you more when I see you next time. Whenever that might be. It'll happen, I promise. Neferi raises an eyebrow at my assuredness, but nods. Well, here's a Kenian goodbye. One between those who are close. He leans down, pulling me forward. His chin rests on my shoulder, his paw coming up to rest on my head, his cheek pressed to mine. May Ahotep be with you on every step of your journey, brother, and may he help you find all that you seek. I hear Amicus make more noises of disapproval, but it's quiet. I stand there a few moments, then awkwardly put my hand on the jackal's head, hoping I'm returning the gesture appropriately. I stand still until Neferi lets go and pulls back. Never heard you call me brother before. It's a farewell formally reserved for siblings. I haven't performed it since I last saw my sister on Kemia, in fact. You see me as a brother? Close enough. Until we meet again, friend. Thanks, and yeah, until then, Neferi. Amicus coughs awkwardly, stepping forward and putting his paw around my shoulder. All right, see you all when I return. Virginia smiles and Neferi nods as we turn away from them, Amicus leading the way to the ship that's parked on the palace lawn. He jumps in first and reaches down to help pull me up. But as soon as I'm inside, the door closes before I can look back. I'm struck by the fact that I haven't been inside the ship since I first got here, yet it's also familiar. Alright, let me make sure we have everything. Amicus walks around the back of the ship, looking at various compartments, looking into the utility closet that had once been stuffed into. He opens the door to his quarters, doing more checks. I move to the seat that I'd sat in a year ago and look out the window. Virginia and Neferi stand by the entrance of the palace, still watching. I wave and Neferi raises a paw in acknowledgement. Everything seems to be in order. Calm, initiate liftoff. Liftoff sequence engaged. The ship rumbles, though there isn't any sound as we begin to lift off the ground. Amicus sits heavily in his seat with a thumb, buckling his seatbelt while I do the same. I watch out the window as Neferi, Virginia, and the palace grows smaller and smaller along with the entire city of Adastra. It's not unlike taking off from the airport on my way to Rome, though this is much faster. Before I know it, the glittering city fades into a small, sparkling spot of lights on the globe of the moon. I stare out at Adastra, at the little patches of glittering lights indicating the cities, and at the long stretches of dark blue that indicate the oceans. That's when I notice Amicus watching me closely. What? The big wolf shrugs. Oh, just curious as to how you might feel at this moment. I must say, you seem less stressed than you had been last night. I go back to looking out the window, getting a last look at Adastra, along with familiar Torque and the much larger Anchorus. I guess things became clearer, kind of like you said they would. Amicus grins, and now I get the feeling that he knows exactly what I saw. Sufficient data achieved. Prepare to enter the stretch drive. Amicus reaches out a paw, and I take it. Then you know there is much ahead of us together. I nod, too many different emotions conflicting inside me to understand how exactly I feel as I watch Adastra get smaller and smaller. Then, it's gone, placed with warped space and unimaginable distance. About 10 hours. That's how much time we have before we get to Earth. We agree to stay up and treat it like having an entire day to ourselves. 2 hours pass quickly as we lie on the cot as Amicus entertains me with the various foods we have stashed in the compartments along the wall. He'd brought plenty this time. He'd learned his lesson the first time after he ran out and had to rely on the less than savory protein mud shake. As for the space travel food, they apparently can't go bad, so we open every single one, taste testing them and ranking them from worst to best. Amicus is surprised our rankings are nearly opposite each other, even though I expected it. You're always wanting anything sweet, Amicus. Yes, because sweet is good. Sometimes, but I'd rather have something that's have more of something that's salty and savory rather than sweet. But why? It's like dessert all the time. There's a reason dessert is small and comes last, Amicus. I don't see the reason. Ever heard of too much of a good thing? If something is good, then there can never be too much of it. Amicus flicks around a blue pebble-like pellet into his muzzle, and I assume this is some kind of fruit-flavored candy. I settle with munching on my salty potato chip-like dried vegetable, finding it sad that it's a bit better than most of the bland food on Adastra. Did your parents, ban you from eating anything sweet or something? Amicus pauses in the process of pouring half the bag into his muzzle before talking with his mouth full. Oh yeah, how did you know? I grimace. So that's how you ran out of food last time. Amicus chews for a while, then swallows. It's not like I'm always eating sweet. Virginia disallows me from doing so as well. I'm simply taking advantage of not being under her supervision at the moment. Amicus, your consumption of sugars has exceeded your daily limit. A report for Virginia has been filed, and will be supplied to her upon our landing on Adastra. Amicus pauses, then shrugs, pouring the rest of the bag into his mouth. Well, as long as you have the parental tech to keep you healthy. We do. Everything in my body is regulated to normal levels once a month. Wow, lucky you. So I am technically free from any poor choice I make diet-wise. I'm simply kept away from sweets to discipline my impulses. Well, that's clearly not working at all. Amicus smirks at me before opening another bag of what looks like candy. I glare at him and poke him in the stomach, making him grunt. I think you're actually gaining a little more weight. Wolf clasps his stomach with a hard smack. It's part of my stature, and is important for my center of gravity in combat. Oh, really? I move to sit in Amicus's lap, rubbing my face against its bulk. Yes, you see how handedly I handle you when we wrestle. Besides, you like it. I rest my paw against his chest, feeling the softness of his strong body swell around me with each breath he takes. You got me there. I listen to the candies clack around in his mouth, against his teeth, and against each other. I've been savoring everything about him that I can, even just these sounds of him eating candy. We sit there in silence for a bit, becoming all too aware of the passage of time. I take a deep breath. So, will we be able to communicate it all over the next 8 years? Amicus pauses, his mood lowering a bit to match mine. It's hard to say. I've wondered similar things, but I have not received an answer. I sigh deeply. Sometimes I hate the parents. Amicus laughs, a stark contrast to how he would have reacted to such a statement a year ago. They are frustrating, to say the least. I have a feeling that we will, though. Yeah? Yes, they work in very mysterious ways. I believe it is clear now that the archives are not their only method of communication. I think the two of us joining together in, say, a dream would not be out of the realm of possibility. The confidence I'd originally felt while leaving Adastra is fading away at this point. Instead, I feel that familiar feeling of dread and uncertainty take over my mind. I hug Amicus harder, pressing my face into his fur, inhaling the lavender scent. I mumble into his chest. I'm scared. Why is that? There is nothing to be afraid of. Amicus hugs me tightly, nuzzling my hair. Even now, he's managing to hold it together somehow. That actually makes me feel a little grateful. I don't know how I'd be able to do this if he were acting as unsure as I am right now. You know how big of a fuck-up I am. What if I do something wrong? Amicus chuckles. I feel that the parents would not attempt this unless they themselves were certain of success. Simply follow their guidance. I'm silent at that, and Amicus knows why. I know what we experienced with Cato was terrible. They weren't able to see as clearly. I know that they are much more confident here. I don't know how I feel about being guided by gods that don't know what they're doing. Well, they're not gods, which is why they are prone to mistakes, but the time I've spent communicating with them over the past year has me left a bit more confident in their capabilities. I squeeze my eyes, letting the small amount of tears that have built up get soaked into the wolf's fur so he doesn't see when I look up at him. Why's that? He smiles at me, placing a paw against my shoulder and pushing it back down against his shoulder. Well, they have far more tools at their disposal than we do. I mean, they actually see the future in some ways. If I must trust anyone with my future, it would be the parents. I just don't want to mess up and not be able to see you again. Amicus's expression grows stern. That will not happen. I will make sure of it, no matter what the parents say. But do we even have a choice? Does it bother you that it feels like we don't have a say in anything? These are conversations we've had before, but for some reason I keep flip-flopping on whether or not I actually do have a choice here. We do. We just have the advantage of knowing the alternatives, and that this path is much more desirable. I'm reminded that while Amicus might be more open to criticizing the parents, he certainly still believes in their plan. I don't know if I feel the same quite yet. You saw our future? Amicus pauses, probably wondering if this is okay to share. He seems to make up his mind. Yes. It was beautiful. I worry it's not really going to happen. I've only thought of it now, but what if they're leading us on? Amicus grunts in response, clearly not having thought of that himself. They wouldn't do that. But I suppose there is some degree of trust that goes into this, yeah? We're here because of them. All of us are, and I have to trust that. I sigh deeply. I just wish we could run away to some other peaceful planet or something. But I guess we wouldn't be together unless we were meant to do this, so I guess that's partly why I'm going along with it. You know, judging by the vision, I think we will come to believe in our mission over time. I hope so. Amicus slowly pulls me to lie back down with him, both of us lying on our sides as he spoons me. I try to think of something to say, anything really. Time is truly running out now, but I still come up short. Instead, I lie back against Amicus, amongst the many silver wrappers of food, listening to him suck on his candies. It's comfortable, and for a moment I let go of my worries, and the tiredness of the night before catches up to me. Exiting the stretch drive, prepare for arrival in 20 minutes. I come to with a sudden jolt, Amicus jumping behind me as well. I sit up, rubbing my eyes. Wait, already? Amicus sits up next to me, a paw on my back. Are we alright? Damn it, Amicus, we were supposed to stay up! There's a sinking feeling in my chest as I realize we've slept away most of the time we had to travel. Why'd you let me fall asleep? I look at him accusingly, even as my eyes start to blur with tears. I'm sorry, we were both so tired. You seemed at peace and I didn't... Ugh. I throw off the blanket that Amicus had pulled over us and step out of the bed, turning away in case I break down like a little kid. Marco? I act like I don't hear him, moving to the cockpit area to look out the windows. Sure enough, we're no longer in the stretch, instead drifting toward a familiar globe in the distance. Approaching Earth, we will arrive at Marco's residence in Rome, Italy. A heavy paw rests on my back. Marco, we're out of time. The lump in my throat makes it hard to talk. Slowly, Amicus hugs me. Marco, we did have time. Several months, in fact. A few hours on a ship is no time lost. Any time is time lost at this point. Amicus doesn't say anything, and I lean my head back against him, swallowing down my bitter attitude because I'm not about to let it ruin our last moments together. Sorry, I'm not ready. I'll be able to come into your apartment. We still do have a bit of time left, you know. I nod quietly, allowing Amicus to hold me for a bit until we have to get back in our seats for re-entry. I feel slightly queasy as we approach Earth at an unreal speed. I quickly spot Europe, the brilliant sprawl of lights spanning the continent as a whole far more intense than any city on Adastra. Italy's characteristic boot-like shape stands out from the darkness of the seas that surround it. I focus on the glittering patch that I know is Rome, and within seconds we're descending into it. Won't everyone see us? We're cloaked. I trust what the wolf says, even though I haven't noticed any difference. We continue to descend at a rapid pace, and as we approach a block of apartments, I rip onto the seat in anticipation of a hard landing, but our sudden yet gradual halt is gentle. We come to rest on the roof of my residence. We landed on the roof. Indeed, there was no room elsewhere. Amicus opens the door and jumps out, and once and again I'm worried about being seen. When he helps me out, I realize how dark it is. Stretch schedule indicates liftoff should commence in 15 minutes. Another twist in my chest as we're down to literally minutes. Amicus leads the way to a fire escape, and I'm struck by how strange it is seeing my wolf framed by this human world. The sights of Rome, the sounds of distant traffic, it almost makes me dizzy with how familiar it is despite having been away for so long. Amicus stops at a balcony, and I trust that it's the one to my apartment as he boldly slides open the door, apparently aware that the landlord never seems to keep it locked. I step inside, and through the darkness, I can see that my personal belongings are gone, obviously. It's cleaned out and looks just about the same as when I first got here. It's empty, luckily, and I wonder if anyone has stayed here since I went missing. Probably not if there was an investigation. I swallow hard, remembering how much media coverage and documentaries there were about the 2 Canadian British students that went missing here a few years ago, and the coverage of an Australian student who disappeared a week before I arrived. I hope I didn't get the same treatment while I was away, but I get the feeling that I must have. I shake my head, once again wondering where to even begin. I turn around, seeing Amicus standing there, and immediately I get a painful stabbing feeling between my throat and chest. His pose and demeanor. He's finally reflecting that our time together is coming to an end. We both stand a few feet apart, unsure of what to say. Well, yeah, I suppose we should begin our farewells. Yeah, until next time at least. Yes, it will only be a moment in the overall time that we will have together. Yeah. I'll bet when you come back to get me, we'll be like, wow, it was only yesterday you dropped me off. Of course, not even a full day. It'll feel like hours, I'm sure. The parents called it a cosmic microsecond or something. Well, yeah, probably a bit longer than a microsecond, but I'm unsure of the length of a cosmic one. 8 years, I guess. I suppose that would be the case. I try not to think about all of the things that are going to make me cry. Like the thought of not waking up to Amicus for the first time in months. Or the fact that I won't have someone to really talk to at the end of the day. That I won't have someone who's just genuinely kind and loving toward me like no one ever was before. I swallow the lump in my throat again. No! I'll have time to fall apart as soon as he leaves. I step forward and hug Amicus, burying my face in the warmth of his furry body, breathing in his scent. I'm determined to imprint this moment in my mind, something to help weather what I'm sure will be a hard 8 years. He rocks us back and forth for a moment, kissing my head like he always does. You're more than prepared for this. You're strong. Why else would you have been chosen? Thanks, and you'll continue to be an amazing Emperor, Amicus. Here's hoping. Though I still don't even know what to do right now, to be honest. Like, do I just walk out into the street next? Oh! Amicus steps back, feeling around his cape and trousers. I really hope I remember. Here! Amicus pulls out a slim silver rod about a foot long. It's one of those holographic tablets that I see the imperial family carrying around every now and then, aside from Amicus. I've gotten the impression that he just isn't fond of electronics. Parents have instructed me to give you this. It will connect to your lingual, which will transmit and display information that you might need. Otherwise, all communication will be through the lingua. I reach out, taking it, the cold metal light in my hands. I almost forgot to give it to me. Yeah, well, I did remember. I sigh, turning the rod over in my hands. You turn it on by tapping the top. I do as I'm told, and a blue glowing pane slides out from the rod, like a page attached to the spine of a book. It's blank for now. Just wait until they offer instructions. Okay. I tap the top of the rod again, and the hologram recedes. Another awkward moment of silence, then... Marco, I am so happy to have met you, and I thank you. You have made me a better man, and though this will be painful, Amicus' voice cracks. His resolve to remain strong finally gives in. I will think of you every day, and we will meet again in 8 years. No matter what might happen between now and then, I will see you again. His voice is strained as he struggles to get his words out. Then the tears really begin spilling over. Damn it! Amicus races apart to cover his face in frustration. like he actually planned on not crying before we parted ways. And I find that silly, because of course we'd cry. I'm doing the same as I move forward and wrap him up in a tight, almost desperate hug. He crushes me to his body, letting out a loud gasping sob through his teeth as I feel the wetness of his tears land on my head. I love you so much, Marco. I love you too. Like I've said, this is simply a stone in the way of our chariot's wheel. These few years are simply the push, and we'll be on our way again. And things will get easier over time, without a doubt. And remember your ring. Though I might be moving away, I'm moving right towards you from the other side. We are permanently connected. Yeah, the universe is spherical. I don't care about the other theories. We both stand there, holding each other, trembling and sobbing. After a few minutes, though, we both calm down a little, and eventually I hear calm buzz faintly in Amicus's ear. Liftoff sequence should be engaged in 1 minute. Amicus steps back, firmly gripping my shoulders. He's smiling through the tears. And I think we shall see each other before then. The parents are mysterious, like I said. Definitely. Marco, my lover, my partner, my future husband, I love you. And you know I love you too. Amicus pulls me against his chest again, hard, squeezing me. You will have amazing success here, and I'll see you soon. Very soon. He plants a kiss on my mouth, and I have just enough time to kiss back before my wolf turns away and disappears out the balcony door. I listen to the metallic sounds of his footsteps hurrying up the fire escape, then nodding, then nothing until there's a soft hum that I can only imagine is the ship before it's silent again. I stand there in the dark room, feeling a little stunned before moving to turn on the light. I stand there, staring, unsure of how to feel. For the moment, it's mostly just an empty feeling, although I'm sure will start to ache as I come to realize how lonely I actually am. For now, though, I move to the desk, waiting, thinking. Then I set the metal rod on top of the desk and tap the top. The blue plane appears again, and I stare at it. It's blank, and I start to wonder if I should keep it open. Maybe I should try to get more sleep before facing what I'm sure will be a chaotic day. At that moment, I feel a twitch in my left eyelid. Then words appear on the blue plane. Proceed to the European Commission offices. A committee is expecting your arrival in 1 hour and 20 minutes. I stare at those words, realizing that I might not actually be alone amongst humanity having all of this knowledge. I look around as if I have something to take with me. But no, I'm still in my robes. People will probably just think I'm a street performer or crazy tourist. At 3 in the morning, my left eyelid twitches again and a map appears on the screen, showing me a half-hour walk through various alleys and back streets, meant to keep me out of sight, I imagine. So with this deep breath, I pocket my alien gadget, preparing myself to begin this journey. I'm scared, but also relieved that things are moving so quickly. Also relieved that this will keep my mind off of the separation I just experienced. With any luck, I'll be kept busy enough that I won't have to feel the full brunt of that agony all at once. I look back into the room where it all started, taking a deep breath. I'm actually kind of excited. The thing I'd been dreading for months has now started, and it gives me a boost of adrenaline, preparing me to face my duty. Then I turn off the light, leaving the apartment behind, ready to start another new life. It's the rain! Oh god, I've never get this one before. I make my way quickly to the throne room, trying my best to contain my excitement. The most difficult part of this exciting new life I have is pretending that I'm not excited at all. So I try to look as dignified as I walk into the throne room toward Amicus seated at the back. I stop and bow as low as I possibly can. No need for that. What news do you have, Scipio? Unfortunately, I can't stop the smile from spreading across my face as I hold up the message. The Pharaoh has accepted our request. The diplomatic mission may commence as soon as you are ready, Emperor Amicus. Okay, serious question, because this is like the last thing that I'll be doing for Adastra. Do y'all want to see the bad ending, or just like mentally recover from this game? Well, if not, I'll probably just record it. You know, I'll just record a video and post it to YouTube about the bad ending. So that was Adastra. I'm not going to live stream tomorrow because, well, I finished this game and also I have shit to do. So instead, what I'll do is I'll also have a poll on Twitter eventually. I also will not be streaming this weekend. I'm not sure when I'll be back. I'll announce on Twitter when I'm officially returning. Or something, I don't know. So, stay safe, and have a good night.